Hello, this is Noah Lee, and this is my submission for CSC313 on assignment 9 for fractal terrain generation. I'll try to show off what we ended up rendering, but I believe on account of there being a lot to render here and my computer not really having it, it's probably going to look a little bit choppy, so I'll try and go a bit slower to show this off. So, what we ended up doing for the kind of like navigation of the menu is I figured out how to adjust the position of the camera itself to allow for different angles to be seen on the geometry. Along with that, I allowed the camera look position to be moved on its own. So I can kind of focus the camera like right below where we currently are, and then move with that as kind of our vector point. We can move up and down in the geometry and kind of get a more interesting view at a lower angle. As you can see, this would be me moving the actual position of the camera focus itself, locked to kind of the vague edge of the screen. And then I can move upwards and get kind of a higher view on everything that's happening here. Again, this is probably gonna be a little choppy. I apologize if it can't really be made out. But this is how we can kind of navigate through the landscape itself and kind of see what the changes ended up doing. Along with this, Titus implemented the abilities to change the map itself. We used the, I believe, Y and T keys to shift and stretch the positions of the vector of our points to kind of change the complexity of the map here. Unfortunately, it ended up being just kind of a global scale. We do have an interesting way that we can grow and shrink the map. However, unfortunately, this is not reflected in the end version of what is saved. It is just kind of an interesting and rather strange way to look at the map itself. I can try to navigate over to this change position. Maybe not. I think because of the way that it moves it, it's not really visible. I'll go ahead and close the project and try and show off our code. Again, I apologize if that was a bad recording there. Just want to kind of rendering everything. It's a bit difficult to see. Okay, I apologize there. I thought I was having some audio issues, but to check and watch over the video, and goodness, that was indeed very choppy. I will try and add something at the end, probably to try and show off a bit more of the actual map of the actual terrain itself. Maybe slow down the movement speed to try and render it a bit better. But either way, I'll go ahead and go over what I added to the code. Primarily, what I added is I implemented most of the LWJGL library into this from the cell shading project. What this ends up doing is just handling all the rendering and allows us to move the camera. For some more specific things that I changed within the code itself, I added a static for the file name that will be used later to save the file itself. And then just implementing all of the graphics library. I will skip over this for the most part since it's pretty standard for the rest of the graphics library. I will stop on the camera settings, find them. So here is how I handle moving the camera. Instead of, let me find where these are used. So I set up some public floats for the eye position, along with the position of the camera, along with the angle of the camera, with the Y position of the camera angle being just kind of locked to vaguely downwards beneath the bottom of the terrain, with the X, Y, and Z positions, along with the X and Z rotation of the camera being able to be modified. This is done fairly simply with just using pretty much what we did for Cube Spinner, just looking for keys to be pressed and then shifting that into changes for values. For the look angles, this is very similar. We just use the WASD keys to look for those, with a kind of angle lock that stops the angle from changing once we reach a 0 position or the maximum size of the map itself. And Titus adding this for roughness and the stretching. Saving the adjustments with the P key to actually write out the looks like we might actually not end up have saved that. We might have to pull it in. From here, again, camera, we're just using the look at positions, changing the position of the camera, and then the actual angles where we're looking at is being unchanged. We do have render outline as a, this is actually depreciated for this implementation. Since this was for cell shading, you can see that it was just implemented in here. Commenting this whole thing out will change nothing about the code itself. Nothing ended up being used here, just is old from having used it in cell shading. And then in main here, had to, I believe Titus moved this around, but just running it as a thread, generating the height map. And then I set up this as a future. I figured how to implement this in a similar way to the way that JavaScript lets us do an await on some values. Basically, all this does is we create part of the terrain off of the height map, then edit it and create the file. I believe that actually, since Titus changed some of these things, we didn't actually need to. I think maybe the way that these were changed, it's a little bit different implementation, but general idea here is that we create the map, we have the height map, and then we use a future, or when I implemented this originally, this is a future to ensure that the file would be created before the terrain generator would run. And just creating that and passing that off. I believe everything from here on is just creating the file itself. No changes there. I made this small change when we were using this, where we generate the file first to instead return the file instead of just writing it to an OBJ. And again, implementing the model object and load model from the graphics library implementation. Okay, and that's everything. Covered everything we have for the assignment. All right, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to working on the the car one actually. I'll see them as well. I'll go ahead and see if I can add something at the end here to show off the animation a bit more. If you don't see anything else, then have a good evening and good night. Hello, this is Noah after the fact. Did a little recording, just kind of speeding up here a little bit to make it look a little less choppy. Just trying to show off a bit more of the actual animation. I just cranked the speed way down and I'm kind of buffering through everything here. Just trying to show off the camera movement and then adjusting the terrain here. It's a little choppy, I apologize, kind of shrinking in here. You can't really tell what's happening, but it's just kind of shrinking the terrain in. And just kind of moving around. Just trying to kind of show off the camera movement a little more. Sorry it's so needle. Anyway. Okay, and good night.